people, and that turned into 11. So that's a nice surprise. I'm Dan O'Connor. I'm the Forest Fuels Officer and Fire Prevention on the San Bernardino Forest. And today we are going to go over project development, and I'm glad that Fillmore primed you guys a little bit on fire regimes. We'll definitely be talking about those today and how to take that and apply into designing, developing projects of your own. So to start, I figured since I've got 4 hours, and I definitely am not a 4-hour talking type of guy, I'm going to get you guys going to help me out through this. To start, BDF guys, you want to start with this? We'll just go around the room, name, your current position, and what motivated you to take the curriculum if you're one of the full-time students here, or for the BDF folks, why'd you come down today? So, you guys want to start over there?
My name is Ryan. I'm squad leader on Big Bear Hot Shots, and basically Thad motivated us to be here. We have a huge we have multiple fuels projects up on the mountaintop, so I think we're just trying to harness them and start buying them. That's it.
I'm Ray Aguayo. I'm one of the foresters up there. We work a lot with our fuel guys and hot shots and all fire guys, so that's why I'm here to help.
So I'm Thad Chavez. I'm the Division 1 or the for the Mountaintop San Bernardino National Forest, the Division Chief. Relatively new there. Came from Colorado most recently. I've been kind of messing around with fuels for a good, I don't know, since 2000 thereabouts, doing prescribed fire, writing burn plans. Been burn boss since 2004. Actually came down here in 2004 to with a FUDA module, Southwest FUDA module, to actually do some prescribed fire. Back when FUDA modules were out and about, and down here on the Cleveland was one of the places that we got to burn. I don't know, is Hans Walker still around? Yeah. He's the one that hooked us up with this stuff down here. So I got into fuels because I think it's a really important part of fire management. I think it's on the more progressive, proactive side instead of just reacting to when we get wildfires. Really important part. All this discussion about fire regimes and condition class and project planning. I'm glad I got this many folks that are actually interested in coming to this kind of course or this kind of discussion, because that's kind of one of the things that I've noticed that we're a little bit lacking is kind of the understanding on the project planning side of things. So this is a good thing that we've all shown up here.
I'm Darby. I'm a forester in San Bernardino, dealing primarily with fuels and fuels implementation. So I guess that would be my motivation.
I'm Troy from Fuels and Prevention BC on the mountaintop, and we're trying to get more into broadcast burning, so on the San Bernardino. So that was my motivation.
Joe Ruiz, East Peak Health Tech Captain. Like that said, just thought it'd be a good opportunity for us to come down here and learn something from this whole project development for all these broadcast burns and whatnot we're trying to implement on San Bernardino.
Brent O'Weiler, one of the squad bosses on Helicopter 534. I just got qualified as burn boss 3 last season. So for me, it was pretty cool. We ran the fuels crew last winter. Then I took the 301 class last winter. So I've then when I was out in Arizona a couple months back doing some burning, so it's kind of all lined up perfectly for me. We just got a new division chief who's all adamant about burning and getting more prescribed burns done on the forest. So it's pretty cool. I'm starting to realize the importance personally as far as treating the land, like Thad was saying, to prevent some of the suppression issues we're having during the summertime. So it's exciting for me to learn how all this kind of comes together and kind of get more of the big picture from starting out as a seasonal employee, 10 years ago, where it was just going out and taking a drip torch and dumping it on top of a pile and hoping it burns the ground and calling it a day kind of a thing. So looking forward to learning more about it and kind of seeing the big picture stuff. So glad to be here.
Steve Jordan, I'm the other squad boss, Heaps Peak Helitac. Just like everybody else, just here to get more knowledge, take it back to the district.
Grady Trammell, engineering goose, same thing, just more knowledge, better fuels manager.
Good morning, Brian Grant, captain on the Mountain Top District of San Bernardino Forest. Just really interested in the fuels and the land management and learning more about it.
Mike Gomez, engineer 13. I've been RXB3 since 2008. I'm here to get more familiar and more knowledge on broadcast burns. John Fakeney, engineer 52 from San Bernardino. So basically what kind of got me a little bit more involved in dealing with fuels, I started out in 05 on the district, and it was kind of that same principle of put the torch on the ground and make it a day. But working with Jim Snow, he kind of opened it up and showed all the advantages, disadvantages, being able to know the fuel types, all that sort of stuff, and we see that through our careers, but it brought a little bit more insight into it, and it allowed me to kind of look more towards the management aspect in relations, to being a burn boss, and going through and being able to kind of set it up for the situation that you want to have versus having to deal in a situation that you don't want to have when the fire does come. So, I got into this just to get more knowledge, and I did RX310 last year, and that was a cool class. If you guys have a chance to take that, make sure you take it. It was insightful, and then just looking to progress, hopefully get my RXB too.
Brian Bernay. I started here on the Cleveland. Now AVO out at 52, soon to be engineer at 50. Firing boss, burn boss. Did a lot of burns here on the Cleveland. Went on a lot of fire programs back east with these great opportunities that Fillmore had for us. I love burning. I love burning. I'm really here taking this class to learn more of the backstory as to why do we burn and what it takes, up to that point, and just gathering knowledge, learn more.
Dilly.
I'm Doug Balk. I'm a captain with Miramar Fire Department. I'm on the DoD side. I'm here basically because our fuels guy, Paul Tompkins, just retired. He's an old Cleveland Forest Service guy. I'm just trying to pick up the pieces and run where he left off, working with Dave Edwards and Dan Gonzalez, which a lot of you guys might know. And we're just here for knowledge to carry it on, carry the torch.
Art Lozano, I'm the fuel technician, Fuels 5 on the Sandjack. This is my first year in that position. Pretty much how I ended up in fuels, I spoke to a couple of my mentors and they highly recommended this position. Didn't really know what I was getting into, but as soon as I took it, it really flipped my world upside down. It changed my whole view, and it brought the whole big picture of what we do as an agency. And with that came a lot of responsibility, and I love it. I love the challenge, but I guess the reason why I'm here is just to get a more thorough understanding of my job, pretty much because I'm kind of steering away from fire a little bit, and every time I'm trying to work on fire quals, I'm being told that I have a day job, and I'm starting to see why, because I guess behind the scenes, behind all the burning and stuff like that, I was assigned all the project managers. I'm assigned the project manager on all our fuel breaks and fuel projects and stuff like that. But that pretty much molds and develops our prescribed burns. So there's a lot that goes into it, and I just kind of want to have a more thorough understanding and set ourselves up for success for the winter. That way we can develop and deliver a quality product so that our burns are successful. So with that, obviously there's going to be a lot of knowledge that needs to be grasped and applied out on the field. So that's pretty much my just for being here.
I'm Kevin Valdivia. I'm the other squattee on Big Bear Hot Shots, and I'm here just to get more understanding on RX burns and what goes into implementing them. You heard everybody else say all the projects that are going on the mountaintop, so I just want to get more involved in all that.
Cody Zettelmeyer, captain on Big Bear. Very dilly on everybody's conversation. So I got a lot of holes in my career right now. So I'm trying to fill them with trying to figure out where we need to go as an agency and where I need to go with my career. So fuels is definitely a thing that we need to do in the fire ecology sense, or progressing in the future, especially with how the fire environment's been changing and lack of weather and trying to manage all these fuels. So just trying to fill some gaps. That's about it.
I guess that makes it my turn. Richard Bowen, I'm the engineer at Descanso Station on the district south of here on the Cleveland. The longer I notice I hang out, the more responsibilities and projects you're asked to complete, and this class and the program kind of seem like a way to develop it, so when you're working on those projects you're not just kind of filling in blanks and boxes and kind of have an actual understanding of the things that you're implementing.
My name's Lance Linhart, work on the Descanso also. I've been dragging a drip torch through piles and across our district for the past 12 years, so now I'm just trying to figure out why and how.
Cool.
Adam Fortman, I'm 5 on the Trabuco district, and since the start of my career I've always been interested in the how and why we choose projects or treatments or any of that, and that's why I'm here, is to kind of learn more about that and stuff that you won't get in the NWCG course.
Kyle Johnston, I'm lead 5 on the Descanso district at Glencliff. We're just trying to get more of an understanding of why and what we do, and then try to implement it better.
Cyrus Galvin, 6 on Engine 24 in the Trabuco Ranger District. I took this class to correlate the fire behavior and fuels into it, to get more knowledge out of everything. And during this class I've been kind of interested in the fuels tech job opportunities.
Watch out.
We need more. Come on.
Fillmore, can you go through this for our San Bernardino folks? Who you are and
like, why am I taking this class?
why you put it on?
Why I put it on? Yeah, sorry, I realized I forgot to introduce myself at the beginning, which is a common failing in my teaching. My name is Stephen Fillmore. I'm the Forest Fuels Officer on the Cleveland. Fortunately, I don't have prevention on my PD as well, so Dan's doing twice the work, so just keep that in mind. Let's see, this class started, I will talk about what motivated me to build it. This class started back in like 2012. I came to the Cleveland in 2010, and pretty soon realized that there was a lot of interested people in fuels management and fire management. And that was verified to me, I guess, by the fact that I had just a lot of people come up to me, someone like Kyle would come up and be like, hey, why are we doing this? I got a lot of why questions. And it's not exactly like this, but I kind of got to a point where I was like, man, I can't answer all these questions individually and all the time and go out to all the stations, so I saw that perhaps there was a need for a class. And it's more complicated than that, but we put together the idea to actually put together a fuels class. And then another aspect about those of you that are actually working in fuels, as you know, is that there are no NWCG fuels classes per se. Like, yes, there's the burning classes, but those of you guys that have heard me in 310 know that I don't view that as a fuels class. It's just a class that supports prescribed fire. So we tried to build a knowledge base that would give you that sort of like intro level knowledge to be functional working in fuels management. And then you don't have to be, it's not something that has to be a fuels tech. This class isn't relevant only to people like Art or whatever. I always posit that we all do fuels, right? Have you guys all done fuels management? Yes, so that you're all sort of fuels people or firefighters or forestry techs or whatever you want to call yourself. So the information is relevant to anybody at any point in their career, whether they're a 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, whatever. You know what I mean? There's the value. So that is what has continued to motivate me, I guess, to teach the class and to teach it with my colleagues and my friends as well too. Is that there really continues to see that. I always see that hunger for knowledge, especially in fuels management, trying to demystify what fuels management is for people. You know, it seems like this thing that's hard to get into, but if you start breaking down the components of it, it's really not that bad. I don't know, probably missing much, but that was the reason for doing the course. This is the 4th time we've done the class here in Cleveland. We've had people from San Bernardino 2 times in a row now, and the Plumas, and this time we actually have DOD, which is a nice addition too. So, but it's I think it's kind of we're getting to the end of probably a lot of the folks on the Cleveland. So I hope to see it expand to other places, and it has. So there's a plug for other folks. What else? Any questions or anything? All right, very good.
All right. Okay, I think that setup's pretty good for going through the day. I think that we will answer a lot of your questions and address some concerns and how projects come to be. So I didn't do an objective slides that you see in all fire classes that you've taken. So I have a here's what's up slide, and I don't know how to get to it.
Plug in the USB in the back of it.
Yeah, it should be.
I've noticed sometimes it locks up. There's something else comes up in the background, or I just close it out and restart.
Okay.
Sometimes it works. I had that happen to me yesterday.
Okay, so here we go. So from my experience, pushing a new idea to completion is difficult in today's Forest Service. I've been Fuels Tech, Fuels BC, and now Fuels Division for different forests, and what is consistent is when you have an idea to bring it all the way through to where it's done is it's not easy. There are a lot of barriers to doing that. Some projects that we have are really good, and some we just need to stop. Can you guys agree with this? You've worked on projects that you think, why are we doing this? This is nonsense. It's a waste of time. And another pattern that I've seen is that it's very destructive to programs that you lose confidence, you lose interest in people, that they'll find other things to do. So I do think it's very important that the projects we do develop are effective, they're well designed, they've considered all the options, and we move them through, and they're worth the effort, because again they are extremely difficult and time consuming to maintain that motivation, to get them through to when they're done. So we might as well do them correctly. I've heard this term, because we have the NEPA here, or because we've always done this fuel break, but it's not an effective strategy when we're questioned, by the media or by by OIG. We're becoming more scrutinized for what we're doing and why, and we're just passing the buck. And well, we've always worked here. We have this project and it's funded, so we're just going to do it. That's not good enough. Increased information sharing. We live in a world where information is lightning fast. People take pictures, videos, they spread it, it goes viral. A bad idea, an ineffective project can be spread, and we can lose that credibility. It's very important that our efforts are effective. There's increased competition for time and for funding, and we're seeing this even today. I think it's going to become more competitive for the funds for our projects. So that's even more. Placing more importance on are we spending our time wisely, effectively, to be working the land, or is it something that we're going to waste money and time, and the fire's going to ignore the project anyway? So with that, the projects need to be built well. And to keep that, I think that your experiences and motivation are very valuable to move that project from that initial idea that you've got from your fire experiences, something that you saw, if it was local, if it was someplace else that worked. That's motivation to move the project through so that we do have effective projects. So today, for the objectives, going to connect some of those experiences and motivation with policy and direction, keep you in line with guidance, because we're a federal agency. That's how we operate. I'm going to go through a bunch of tools that are out there to help strengthen your ideas and your argument, give you defense when you're developing these projects to make these things strong so that you can carry them through. And I had $20 in my pocket. If anybody had said that they were here because they were a student of fire, I was going to give you $20. But nobody said it. It's really disappointing. Then I thought you might say it. Give you $20.
I think I intimated that.
I don't think you did. So I want to go through a little bit of the places I've worked. I've worked all around the country and had a bunch of different experiences. And I do think they've helped develop some ideas and perspectives. I started in Florida with the state in 2001, a forester there, and it was a restoration forester. Pretty interesting job with the state. All states are different. Florida is very aggressive, but what they lacked, which I am envious of now, is they didn't really have a whole lot of structure in their policy. In my first fire, I used a terror torch. On my second year, I was running the ping pong machine in the back of the helicopter. It was very loose with what they allowed you to do. We burned 20,000 acres a year. We burned all the time. My first year, I was writing burn plans. There were 2 pages. Instead of an aviation safety plan for using a helicopter, it was a check. You want a helicopter? Yep. That's it. Pretty simple. And the helicopter folks, they would handle it. You guys know what you need to do. We just need it. On that 2-page burn plan, front and back, it's marked. Bring it. Deal with it. It was pretty nice actually. But it was the equivalent of a GS4. No overtime. If we wanted to go out west on fires, we would take our annual leave and go out as an AD. So GS4, pretty big bucks. Really didn't saw the opportunity. Went over to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Worked up in Washington, up in Minnesota, and they were very similar jobs where it was essentially the entire existence revolved around prescribed burning. That we would plant them, prep them, burn them, mop them up, clean them up, and that was all that we did. We're never in station at those places, and it was really a land management job, and that was where I set my foundation. I got a permanent with the U.S. Forest Service in southwestern Colorado, and that's where I started to see, we still did a lot of prescribed fire, but then started to see the need to become qualified in fires, to see aggressive fire behavior, so I moved down to the Cleveland, and was very fortunate that once I got here, I started to work with Brian Rhodes. He just I went from captain at Alpine to BC 43, and he, since I had that strong fuels and prescribed fire background, knew GIS, could do some technical writing, started to work for Fuels Tech for him for a few years, and then transitioned to full-time fuels over in Utah. And all I remember, fuels, blah, 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 it snowed 900 inches on the Wasatch National Forest when I was there. So we did some burns that, it was a great time, but it's also, Wasatch was, really incredible. Known for the snow, 900 inches, it snowed all the time. I went to fire assignments and came back. It kept snowing into after Memorial Day, so that was a really good experience for snow. And then came back because fire-wise, it's kind of slow. They have fires every 10 years or so, and I really enjoyed the excitement down here. So came back to the Angeles as a Fuels BC, worked there for 4 years, and then came up here as the Forest Fuels Officer. So to come back to that Florida experience, I think that what really set a foundation and interest, I worked on a place called Tatesville State Forest. It's on the trigger of the Florida Panhandle, really remote part of Florida. It's adjacent to the Apalachicola National Forest. And on the weekends I go mountain biking up on the Apalachicola. It was a very well-defined, it's a 600,000 acre forest, and they burn, the entire forest is on a 3-year burn rotation. They burn all the time. They've been doing it forever. And they have these beautiful, this is a sandy ridge on the top. It's an elevation of about 6 feet above sea level. And then you have maybe 3 feet or so, you have these wet meadows, and you can see, you guys have been down in Florida, you guys remember seeing the meadows and the pitcher plants? And they were really well-defined cypress drainages. I mean, with that fire, they'd been burned so long, so aggressive, it was so well-defined, it was just really beautiful across that forest. It was a fire-adapted ecosystem, and it was really the polar opposite of what we were working with on my forest. You can see this a little bit closer. There are pitcher plants in there, there's standing water, there's bay, it has a plantation that runs through the middle of it. This area was, it's the watershed right above the Apalachicola Bay. This area had been in the 50s clear cut by private industry, and they just forced this land into something they really didn't want. They raised beds, they made the whole 200,000 acre forest was gridded with just blocks that were a quarter mile wide, 2 miles long, and it was hundreds of these blocks. And in time, they realized that you can't force landscape like that. So the state took over, and having this motivation next door, having no NEPA, no real rules, and what we did, it was we just wrangled this forest back to acre by acre. If we wanted to do a timber sale, we just did it. We pulled the wood out. We would close roads, open up streams, trying to get that water flow back going. It was restoration, I think, at its true essence. We would find those sandy ridges, and we'd mark longleaf pines. They would be excluded from timber sales to keep that gene, that lineage there. Plant with more longleaf, and we would burn, and just trying to force it back to what it had been, 100 years ago. So that was my very first job in fire and in forestry and fuels, and that foundation really set my interest in fuels. And now the foresters that I work with, we all went to the Forest Service, and we're all fuels people because of that foundation. But looking back, I thought they were very innovative with what they were doing. It was very simple. It was nice we didn't have to do NEPA at all. We just did it. And the days, in the morning, I would write the burn plan, front and back, maybe put a check if we needed a helicopter, if we didn't want to walk across it. Go and handle a timber sale for a few hours, and then go to the heli base, jump in the helicopter, and run the ping pong machine. That was a day. GS4. It was really pretty amazing. Looking back, that it was so simple, but so varied. Still looking back, it was one of the probably the best job I've ever had before, but very influential. Something else that happened that kind of steered me towards the interest in fuels. So I was offered my job in fire hire. We all get our jobs in fire hire in the fall, around the last week of October. I was offered my job on the Cleveland engine on October 24th, and October 26th was the Esperanza fire, and that, my experience before had been land management, simple fires, lightning strikes, a few fire assignments. Really, most of the country is pretty straightforward. It's mostly a land management agency. We deal with fire, and then to have that happen, it really was changed everything, because it was a fire position in place where that happens. It was very impactful. I came down, hadn't accepted the job yet, and when that happened, I wanted to come down. I met Compa and was impressed with him. Took the job, and with that fire at that time, with what I'd done, Immediately, I wanted to talk to the fuels person, who was Brian, and got involved with community protection, evacuation routes. So those were two of the kind of pivotal moments that helped steer the interest in fuels. So are there places where you guys have seen, where you've been, that you really enjoyed going hiking, mountain biking, hunting, whatever, and then a fire came through and destroyed it? Have you guys experienced that? Has everybody experienced that? Yeah? So I know, this, I've seen, if you've taken my class before, you've seen this picture. It's within the lake fire, San Gorgonio. It was very tragic what happened with the lake fire. Burned a very nice fire regime 1, highly departed condition class area, burned it entirely, changed it forever, or for a very long time. To think of what it could have been with fire, with balanced fire, and now to see it, to drive by every single time I go up 38 or down, I just think this is heartbreaking with what it's become. Other areas, I went mountain biking here this summer. It's right above Ojai. It's Romero Canyon, where those rocks are. I specifically remember getting passed by a really smug trail runner. This is like 2,000 feet up off the ocean, 10 miles in. It was really hot, and this trail runner just smoked me. I was like, how? I'm so mad. I'm just so smug about it, probably from Santa Barbara or something. But, and maybe I had become jaded, but from this point, you can see the whole Santa Barbara coast. I grew up in rural Massachusetts, and to mountain bike here, you can see from Point Conception, you can see the islands, you can see the Oxnard Plains, Santa Monica Mountains. That was an incredible mountain bike place, mountain bike trail. And we'd go ride there and go get beers at Figueroa Mountain Brewery. It was just such a good time. And yesterday, the day before, you can see the trail's done. It's over. It's been burned through and no more. It won't recover. I'm sure they won't rebuild it, and it's changed. And that's that. Same story on the Camisa Trail. So this is, if you guys are familiar with Santa Barbara, you go up San Marcos Pass, take a right on Paradise Road, go by the ranger station, drop down to it's either lower or upper Osos. You park at one of those, and then you take those roads up that I'm sure everybody in here was on the Zaka or Zaka 2 fire. It looks real familiar. Drive up those roads, or you ride up those roads, and you hit this sign, and you drop in. You just shoot across this meadow, and you go through this little canyon, and it's so well built, hard pack, really fast. Drop down, and it's probably a 12-mile loop. Just an incredible trail. And the White Fire took this one, so this one is done as well. That's they start to add up, and so these are my motivators to get more fire in the timber, and then to make opportunities in the brush to limit those footprint sizes. And I'm not delusional. Our fires are bad. Sometimes they're going to burn with wind. They're going to be huge, and there's nothing that's going to stop them. But sometimes they're not. So fuels projects at their best. I've gotten a lot of mileage out of these pictures, especially the one on the left. This is right above Glendora. It's on, so right below is the Colby Fire Scar. This is a fuel break on the Glendora motorway. You can see it's nice and wide. It's been type converted. It has old brush on either side. This would be an easy fuel break to maintain. And people say that fuel breaks don't work during Santa Ana wind events, but this was a Santa Ana wind event. It started kind of near, maybe like down below here off of Glendora Mountain Road. The wind was out of the north. We're facing straight east. The wind was out of the northeast, pushed it down to the front country above Glendora. But Dozer Dan on Angeles, Dozer 1, and a couple of the Angeles, LA County D8s, they saw this opportunity and locked that. They shut the door on fire growth to the north and kept it in that watershed to the south. So this is, fuel breaks, if they're strategic, if they're well built, if they anticipate where your ignitions are going to happen, where you're going to push them, sometimes they work out really well. So that's, was it luck or was it skill? This was built there, maintained, and then the right fire came along and it worked. So fuels project development. So what does that term mean? Does anybody want to? Where would you start on developing? If you were just told start a project, do a fuels project. It'll give you some money. Just I don't know, make something happen. What does that mean to somebody?
Find a need first, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Location.
Yeah.
Selecting a site and kind of figuring out what your desired outcome of that site would be.
Okay. Yeah. So maybe within your response area, take your response area. Most of the engines, maybe hotshots are a little bit different. It's more district wide, but so that would be the location to start. An objective, within that response area or across the district. What kinds of things would you be looking for? Say it's someone asked you to do a community defense project within your response area. And what are you looking at? And it's a little bit vague, but
Values at risk.
values of risk, sure, yeah. Fuel types, maybe?
Strategic.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would look for those areas or those ecosystems that are most departed from
Okay.
the natural fire regime. So if we're talking about condition class, I'd be looking at those condition class 3.
Okay.
You guys talked about condition class?
Yeah.
So basically something with a frequent fire regime, probably in fire regime 1, that's probably missed the most entries since we've been suppressing fires. That's where I would look first. Because I know that those ecosystems are the ones that are most departed from their natural range of variability. You guys were kind of hitting on the edges of range of variability, but the ecosystems that are most departed from that, and that would be my starting point. And I know that there's maps that people put out that actually map where where those areas are,
Mhm.
and before they all convert
Yep, sure.
to something else. That would be my starting point, and then look at values at risk and all those other things. But
Yeah.
just kind of course general look at the fire regimes and the ones that are most departed.
Okay. So I've got a question, what are we supposed to do? So, we're a federal agency driven by policy. Our funds are tied to agendas. What are we supposed to do with our time, with our money? When creating these fuels projects, where would you go to find that direction? Like Forest Service Manual. You guys heard of the 5140 file within the Forest Service Manual? It gives us direction on fuels management at the agency level. That's a good one to go through, and we'll certainly hit more on this. What are we even allowed to do? So you've got what we're supposed to do. You've got that leader's intent from Chief of the Forest Service, from agency guidance. But then, are we allowed to just go Florida style and just do whatever we want? Or what is the process? And what is the system that we have in place to
NEPA.
Yeah. You guys had has Jeff Hayes come through yet?
No.
Okay.
Next time we can do
All right. So we'll hit on NEPA a little bit, not too much. I'll let Jeff is the expert on that one. You've got some guidance in the agency guidance, and then specific policies with what we can do and why. If there are different times a year. What about? Have you seen projects where you read it? Came up through fire. What different types of equipment do, what you can burn, what lines are good, and you think this is garbage. This is whoever designed this didn't think about this from a fire perspective. How am I supposed? There's no way can physically do that. Have you guys seen that before? So that's out there. You want to consider, you want to walk all these lines and really do your homework and put some thought into what's physically possible. Because again, you could get all the way through this. You could have a NEPA decision that took years. It took hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then you read it, you think, can't do this. This is, we'll do something. We'll make it happen. But it's not going to be any good. It's not going to work. Again, you're thinking about that. Why it's so difficult to get a project from the beginning to the end, then we're going to do it. Might as well do something that works, that you can do, and it's going to do some good. So again, kind of hit on this. I just couldn't help myself. We don't have that that hall pass to just do whatever we want. And it's deep in my psyche. I want to do whatever I want because that's how I started. But you can't. It's federal, national forest, tax dollars. We need to make sure we've gone through the process and that we're, that this is very strategic and supported. And again, why? You guys gone through the monitoring section? Is that maybe tomorrow or?
Yeah, we start that tomorrow.
Okay, so then after you've gone through and done this entire project, you want to make sure that it is, that it's effective and it's been a good use of your time. So we're going to go back a little bit to the start with Dude, and because now I live in LA now, and I think this is just such a classic movie. But if you're a Dude, then where are you going to start? What if you, this is where I started when I lived in LA and worked on the Angeles. I just started driving around my district, and I came out to this, and I thought, this ain't gonna work. What about, it's a comm site, millions of dollars worth of equipment. It's on the top of a ridge, south aspect. It's got about 30 feet of clearance. Is that gonna work? 10, 15 foot brush up there. On the Angeles, we would issue letters to the special use permits and say, hey, Verizon, LA County Sheriff, so you're handling your comm site on our land, do your 30 feet of clearance. So what do you think happens when that doesn't work, and it burns and destroys all this, and they'll say, hey, you gave us this letter that said do our 30 feet, we did, and now everything's destroyed, here's the bill. So that was where I started, just going to see, kind of that low-hanging fruit out there. Can you guys think of comm sites that you've either seen overtaken by fire or maybe on your districts or response areas and think, man, this ain't gonna work in a fire? Yeah, no? Maybe no. Okay, so who remembers Carrot Top?
Yep.
As a kid. Yeah. And I like grabbing pictures and putting random stuff up here. And I was gonna put pictures of Carrot Top, but Carrot Top's been on the strip for 15 years. Pictures I found, Carrot Top he's really yoked, which is really kind of odd. He's also really kind of looks coked out. So I just didn't, it just felt weird looking at that stuff on a government computer. I stopped. But the point comes back to Carrot Top. Do you guys remember he would have this huge box of just all kinds of crap, and he would go through it, and he'd be, one of my favorite ones, he had this neighborhood watch sign. He'd be like, how can you guys have a neighborhood watch? Just stole your sign. Do you guys remember that at all? Anybody? His point was that, there's a neighborhood watch in this community, and grab a sign, so there's not really a neighborhood watch. I kind of think the same things about, like, we have a fuels program. How can we lose the repeaters? Those get burned over. Something else get burned over that hasn't been burned over. Comm sites, lookout towers, fire stations, district offices. These have all been burned over, you sometimes pick on the Angeles, but Mount Hawkins, really cool lookout. Just a great spot. You can see all of Southern California up there. It's ashes and burned timber of a fire lookout tower. These things shouldn't be burning. Fire stations, I know that Mill Creek Station on the Angeles, it burned down. It just doesn't really sit right. The Santa Clara District Office burned down in I think it was a buckwheat fire. This shouldn't be happening. So that's where I start. Just make sure that, just think of Carrot Top and make sure that you're bases are covered, because those are just deal with them and then move on to more exciting things. So the one of those kind of formidable points in my career, before I was a nobody on a forest that nobody's heard of when I got the job offer down here, but that Esperanza fire was very impactful when it happened, and I've always thought about that, especially as a fields manager. In my response area, on my district, on my forest, are there places that I've gone to that I don't want to be during a fire? That you drive through and you think, no way, it's way too windy, there's way too much brush, whatever. In this area, this is in Highway 38, San Gabriel Canyon. This is right at the intersection of the West Fork and East Fork. Really windy, plenty of sun, real dry. We have these little guys here not coming up too well. There are these clusters of homes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is Highway 39, and the East Fork Fire Station is right up here. And fires do happen a lot in this canyon, and they move around quite a bit. That East Fork engine is going to be there quickly. These guys are going to be drunk. These guys they're hermits. They're not going to leave. Same as here. You're going to have to go in there if you have a fire and get them out, because they're not going to be able to do it themselves. Just knowing that area. So every time I drove up here, I thought I don't want to take an engine, tell an engine. I don't want to oversee the whole operation. I don't want any part of people going in here. You go up a little higher up here. One of the old BCs and one of the engine captains were overrun in the Curve fire. And actually, after we designed this project, it had just been signed, and we were assessing where the areas where they were going to work. The canyon fire burned over these homes. So those patterns are there, and those gut feelings that you have, we can do things about that. The circles are 100 feet by county ordinance. The homeowners are responsible for those. But the rest, I designed this evacuation corridor. It's right off the freeway. The guys at the engine station can leave a chipper behind the lock gate, come through, chip away at it. If we have AD crews, they can just chip away at it and blast that open. We can identify the roads, just make this place. Nothing's going to make all areas perfect all the time, but places that you're not comfortable with in your response areas, talk to your fuels person and say, hey, take a ride out here. What do you think about this? On a regular summer day, I don't want to be in here, so what can we do about it? So that's a place to start. And again, it's a coordinated effort. Working with those homeowners, and if they don't want to do it, that's fine. But we can look at the evacuation corridor. It's all our land, and we can look at what policy supports, what the funding would allow, and we can make things happen in those places. So have you guys seen first-hand experience where you think that would be on your districts, where you'd like to see that, or where you've seen it work? I can't talk for 4 hours. Okay, so we'll come back to it. All right, so when you see one of these guys, I have a really long commute. I have really responsible cars that I don't enjoy driving. If I had my way, I would be driving this car in that fashion, skidding everywhere. When I retire in 9 years and 11 months, I'm not going to drive a Prius anymore, 70 miles each way. I'm going to drive one of these little things. I'm going to drive like this. I'm going to go to Tokyo, learn how to drift. So the point is, when you see one of these cars, it means we're changing directions very quickly. So gear your minds up, because we're not going to talk about community defense right now. Now we're going to talk about fire-adapted landscapes. And if you guys want to take a break, you guys go every hour or so. You take
4 hours.
Okay. Do you guys do lunch early or late? Like 11:40?
Yeah, we've been doing like 11:30, 11:45.
Okay.
To get ahead of the Ramona, because a lot of people go out. So.
All right. Let's take a 10-minute break now, or 8-minute break, and we'll be back at 11. Term fire-adapted landscapes. We need to be working towards fire-adapted landscapes. So what does that mean? Is that term? I mean, everybody says it, but what does it mean?
landscape that's going to be more resilient to fire.
Yeah, it's a good start. Are you? Yeah, yeah. I was gonna give you some crap because you just rearranged the words, but you did add resiliency, so that's good. Yeah.
It's not going to be a major impact if fire is in that environment.
Yeah.
It's going to just burn the understory and be a clean burn and
Yeah.
clean up the mess, right?
It's not gonna ruin your favorite place. You can never go there again.
Right.
Yeah, it's gonna be fine because it's fire down. It's resilient, like Art said. Yeah.
For silence.
Yeah. All right. So here's that term again: fire regimes. So is it important to understand? So is like the mountaintop district, is that a fire regime? Is the San Bernardino Forest or Southern California? It's fire regime, whatever. It just burns crazy all the time. We have fire. We have year-round fire season. Our fire regime is crazy. Is that is that accurate, or is it more? It's more delicate, more more specific.
It's more specific than that.
Yeah. So can it vary across a landscape? Maybe vary by elevation, by aspect, by the different types of vegetation. It's important to know. We're talking about grass. We're talking about brush. We're talking about timber. What's the fire regime here? Even the timber, is it white fir? Is it Jeffrey pine? They're all a little different. How the fires come across, and how we their impact. That condition class. So, and you guys talked about this a little bit as well. But what would can somebody give me a rundown of what condition class means?
It's sort of how the deviation of what is supposed to be there versus what exists as far as fire entry.
Yeah, exactly. It's maybe like the health of the fire regime.
Right.
So if the condition class is low, it's fine. It would be a fire adapted resilient landscape. But what if it's a condition class 3? Is that good or is that bad?
Depends. So one, it could be because of too much loading, but it could also be because of the intervals of fire and how it's introduced. So like, you may have timber that, let's say, fire's supposed to go through the once every 100 to 300 years versus now if it's seeing fire in a 1 to 35 year interval, it's not having that chance to reproduce and to have all the other effects that need to be.
I'm very glad that you said that, because these two combined, you guys heard of the fire return interval departure. You guys seen those maps before? And I've got some layers, so we'll come back to this, but exactly. So, condition class is based, it's kind of linear, that it says 1 is good, 3 is departed, but then what John's saying, the opposite, maybe like the front country of the San Bernardino, Cajon Pass, fire regime, so the condition class, 1 through 3 doesn't really apply, it's negative. So, the fire return interval departure is -4 to +4. -4 meaning it's burned way too often, that brush has turned to grass, that timber has turned to brush or turned to grass, it's just getting way too much fire here. Is that important to know as well in designing projects? So, you could be on the low end, but you could also be on the high end. So, where do fires typically start on your district or forest? You guys have a pretty good idea of, on your district, what kinds of fires are you getting? Are they natural? Are they human caused? Are they arson, campfires? What are the problem fires?
Last year, vehicle fires?
Vehicle fires, yeah.
Yeah. Ours is mostly where there's people.
Okay. All right. Anything else? No? All right, we'll come back to that. What about, so maybe you know where they start. Where do they stop? Are there trends that you see? Is there a ridge that fires always hang up on? A road that's really good that works, or some kind of maybe a really wet drainage that always fires always move up to it. Can you think of any places where you know that fire is going to stop? Maybe?
Sundown.
What's that?
Sundown.
Sundown? Sometimes? Okay. All right. So this little quote here is from it's the GTR 315. It's a really easy read. You guys should write that down. GTR 315. It's a national risk assessment document that is becoming louder and more referenced and more talked about. It's good to check out. This is one of the opening quotes in it. It says, unless there's an understanding of the type, likelihood, magnitude of ecological changes that result from fire, either catastrophic fire or controlled burns, uses forest management tools, or conversely, from the lack of fire, it is not possible to quantify the relative risk and benefits associated with various fire management alternatives. So that's kind of a fancy way of saying that, but what does that mean? What does that mean to you guys?
Well, if you don't know kind of the baseline of what happens or is going to happen, it's kind of hard to design a program that'll prevent or, lessen the effects of what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much the same thing. I was just going to say, it just sounds like a real fancy way of saying if you don't know what it's going to do, how you're supposed to effectively utilize it.
So that's important. That's that document. It can be a challenge. It's very dense, but I do like that. It's saying if you don't understand your fire regimes, if you don't understand the term condition class, if it's departed, if you have too much fire, not enough fire. If you don't understand where you're going to get fires and where they're going to start and where they're going to stop, how can you be effective in designing your projects? It's reasonable, right? So, this is my little chunk of ground in Florida where I started. 200 acres of forest right here. This is a really fun place to work. There's a nice little surf break right here, a couple right here. Real good fishing in here. And I was thinking about this last night when I put this picture on here. We used to go shark fishing right there, but then we would go diving for scallops right there, which kind of seemed dumb. And I just thought about that. Like, well, maybe that was stupid. We would go get the sharks here and then the scallops. Anyway. So what the point here is that I like to push this in all my classes, maybe too much, and Fillmore's probably sick of it. But I'm a GIS mapping person, and this is really, I learned this, it was the only way that we operated in Florida, that we would look spatially at our analysis and our chunk of ground. We would have all these layers would be all sandwiched on top of each other. So like you guys said, you've got one of these layers would be your values, where are your homes. Then another layer could be your fire ignitions. You could put your fire regimes in here. You can layer those spatially. You can put your soils. You can put aerial photography. You go through all these, and you can see what's going to cause the most benefit. Well, this one is going to protect structures. It's going to bring us back. It's going to correct that departed condition class. It's going to, according to this aerial imagery that we were able to retrieve from the 40s, this is maybe going to bring our density of the canopy back into more in line when we had those natural fire ignitions. So that's, and I'm going to layer we're going to talk about a bunch of different layers that I use in analysis to develop the most beneficial projects, or that you're going to benefit. You can even put watershed values. You can talk to your wildlife people. What are your wildlife layers in here? So you have all your outpacks in condition class 3 next to where we have all these fires, these ignitions. Does that say that your packs are maybe at a high risk of burning? Within the lake fire on San Bernardino, I counted 50 sites that were burned over. The California spotted owl pack areas. I mean, that's substantial. So are we considering? Are we all working in different corners, or are we working together? For the best fire resilient, fire adapted landscape, based on the vegetation and the ignitions, and maybe based on fire behavior. So that's kind of how I bring in all these different layers, and I just zip through them, and then of course you've got to talk to folks in different disciplines. And I know when I was a BC on the Angeles, I walked every single one of my field breaks, all my communities. I knew them all. I knew where all the structures were. all the repeater sites, the walks, everything. So it gives you that knowledge and the confidence to say, based on my field reconnaissance and my spatial analysis and best science, I think that our money is going to be most strategic here. And it worked out that we had fires that impacted my projects, and you know, it is some validation that you're on the right track and you're not just wasting people's time and money. Because we've all had plenty of that, and nobody wants to go through that. So, again, maybe for the folks that came up that didn't have the benefit of the fire regime discussion yesterday, we have in the top corner, conifer area, maybe a nice low, well actually let me, what would you guys think that fire regime in the top left corner would be? Talking about frequency, intensity, severity.
1?
1? Yeah.
1 or 2.
So, what about the bottom left in the brush? And this is, I think it's a sand fire, one of those large fires from the Angeles. What type of fire regime is in heavy brush, chaparral?
4.
4? Yeah. So what does that mean? As far as frequency and intensity, severity?
Frequency is going to burn anywhere from 30 to 150 years, depending who you talk to.
Yeah.
And then the intensity is going to burn hot.
Okay.
It's a standard replacement fire regime.
Standard replacement, yeah. So what happens, like John was saying, when place in brush and it burns more often? Does that brush have time to develop its seed source? It stores nutrients in the root wads. The chaparral is designed to burn every 30 to 100 years or longer. But when we burn it every 5 years or 10 years, what are we? That landscape, is it at risk that we might have a change in a type conversion into something that might be more prone to burn? We're going to turn that brush because it can't take that frequent fire. It's going to turn to grass. What about our really highly erosive soils in Southern California? What is that going to do for mudslides? It's going to make it more frequent fires, more frequent mudslides. Maybe we'll see roads and bridges get washed out. So understanding your fire regimes is important in designing your projects. Brett?
So the biggest argument I always hear with people is, how do we know that this isn't what Mother Nature originally wants? What if Mother Nature wants to type convert the entire San Bernardino National Forest to buckthorn because of unforeseen things down the road?
Okay.
So I guess way above our, obviously probably everybody in this room's level, how does the agency determine what's good for the forest and what's good for the country, I guess, as a whole, and what the vegetation should be like versus what we think it should be like?
Okay, that's a pretty challenging question. And it's something to acknowledge. Are we looking to restore historic conditions and make our forest a museum, a throwback of what it used to be? Or are we looking to make a fire-resilient landscape where we have too many fires, we slow them down. When we don't have enough fire, we speed it up. So that when we do have fires, they don't burn from Ojai to Santa Barbara. I mean, that's a problem. When we have fires in Highway 38, it doesn't burn all of our pack sites. It doesn't burn all of the campgrounds. Fire can be managed effectively based on the types of fires, the fire regimes, and what we want as an agency, as a nation. Do we want just to let fire just do whatever it wants and burn as many houses that burn up creeks and ruin fishing and ruin everything? Is that what we want? To just let? I would say no. So I think that it's not above our heads. It's something to, as someone interested in fuels, to understand that different fires are, we want to bring that fire back so that it's managed in a way that's not destructive. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. And it's not the easiest thing to determine what that desired condition should be. But there are methods, there are techniques to figure it out. You know, what some of the research universities are doing, like North Arizona University, they have rapid assessment surveys where they actually have some folks come out and help you determine what that pre-settlement fire regime looked like from taking core samples, and can help you figure out what kind of fire regime you had before we started suppressing fires, and you know, that would be a starting point for what that desired condition is. It's pretty interesting. It's pretty in-depth. But yeah, it's actually kind of fun.
Right.
So I like his question. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'll defer to the gentleman from San Bernardino. Go ahead, Brian.
I like his question. Maybe I didn't fully hear the answer, but I'll use the old fire as an example. And I don't think it's as high up as off the forest or the region or higher. Who makes the decision? Who made the decision in the old fire to not replant the entire front side of the mountain? We did certain areas around campgrounds and stuff, but we lost a lot of timber, which totally changed the landscape on the front side of, you know, Arrowhead to Running Springs and all the way over to Calabasas. How does that decision get made to not replant it, or to replant it, or to take this area that's now chaparral or buckbrush and turn it back into timber?
Okay.
How does that?
Is that a decision they're making at the forest level, or does that go up to the region or the Washington office? Like, who's deciding whether to replant it?
That's decades of planning, sorry.
Sure, and again, it comes back, you know, to that first sentence that, you know, it's difficult. I mean, you know, we have a forest supervisor that has her perspective. We have district rangers. We have a division chief. I mean, it has to be discussed, and you put, you know, 4 different people in those positions, you're going to have something totally different. You may, you know, if asked, I would say what, you know, what were the historic conditions? I mean, if it was Jeffrey Pine, if it was nice. Forest area with nice Jeffrey Pine, would probably move to bring back in, you know, Jeffrey Pine back to the area, to reestablish, you know, a functioning chaparral system there. If it was grass, you know, maybe, you know, find ways to reduce that fire threat. You know, I mean, I'm looking to restore the ecology that we're used to there. You know, but it is going to change. I mean, the public, the landowners have their input. You know, they might talk to their lawmakers. I mean, it's very dynamic, and there's a lot of back and forth. So it may change person to person. That?
Yeah, kind of, in my fuels career, one of the great frustrations was there aren't too many people that are looking at the ecology of the landscape. A fire ecologist is going to be looking at it. Fuels people that have had this kind of training are going to be looking at the landscape in terms of fire ecology in general. But, you know, you might get a line officer that's getting pressure to do something, political pressure from a county commissioner or something. A lot of biologists are looking at single species that they're trying to protect. They're not looking at the big picture necessarily. And I'm generalizing. That's not across the board. You know, a lot of the timber folks that I've come across are just looking at what the value of that stand is, and instead of looking at what kind of fire regime it had historically. So I've had our timber folks say, well, we need to manage for white fir because it'll grow, you know, better. Or we need to manage for some other shade tolerant species like southwest white pine, where historically there was ponderosa pine. And basically convert it to something else because they're going to get more yield. That's just one example. So, yeah, you're going to have those battles, and that's kind of, it's coming in with the ecological point of view, I think, is the right way to go.
And understanding, you know, what had been there recently in the past few years, and you know, and the fire regime that we've dealt with, you know, how it came to be. And which, you know, I think you do need to understand and articulate what it looked like and what we wanted to, you know, to look like moving forward.
But yeah, you're getting at it. One of the big challenges in fuels across the board.
Can I offer an answer? it's interesting listening to you. I think Brent's original question was, how do you know what to plant here, right? In an era of change, and all these answers that you guys are giving are all good answers, but it speaks to a lot of personal interpretation and subjectivity. If I could just offer a very simplified answer, we have, and it speaks to planning, which is why we're here, right? We're planning, we are told what to do through our land management plan. So all of this personal interpretation and ethics and ecology and all that stuff is fine. You need to have an understanding of it. But all of that has to be constrained by the land management plan that you're operating under. So we actually have quite a bit of direction. So if you ever go to an area and you want to know what it should look like, by law we have to, we have a land management plan, and it tells us what we're supposed to be moving towards. And all the discussions of ecology and what tree species should be, what fire regime, all that stuff is in the land management plan for you already. So what I'm hearing, I don't want you guys to think that there's really not so much subjectivity and open to one person's interpretation of what you might want to do on the landscape. It's much the opposite. It's actually fairly confined, and I think you're going to talk about this more time. You have to understand all these concepts to be able to interpret that land management plan, but it's already been done for you in many ways. Now, all of this changes when we do a new land management plan, and that's where the longer term questions of climate change, what should it look like, how do we include these changes that we see occurring climatically. That's why do these land management plans every 15 or 20 years, because that's a long enough time period to see those changes. And I suspect that our land management plan in Southern California, it's only how many years old? It's about 10 or so years old now.
Yep.
When we redo it in another 10, there'll be changes that include things like climate change, vegetation, elevational differences, where it's been a long enough time period to be able to see that. So just keep in mind at our level, as a management level, it is there, and it's what we're talking about here, and it's the power of planning, and it's the importance of everything that Dan's talking about today. So,
And back to the question, what are we supposed to be doing? The guidance from Forest Service Manual and the Land Management Plan, we'll go through both of those in more detail as well. So the fire return interval departure, we plotted out this map at our Burn Boss refresher and seemed to get a lot of interest in it. But this spatially, and we're going to see this this plot of land. This is the mountaintop and front country of the San Bernardino Forest. But this is a start, that shows the fire return interval departure across the landscape. And you have dark blue in here above Del Rosa, across the front country. More dark blue in Cajon Pass. Then you have, so what would you guys think that dark blue would mean?
A lot of fire.
A lot of fire, yeah. So maybe, and too much fire. Now you have basically, noxious invasive weeds, cheatgrass that just it can burn every single year up through this corridor. What about up top, that red across there? What do Cucamonga Wilderness, even the Crestline Arrowhead
Hasn't burned.
Yeah. So, but then what happened down in here about 40,000 acres there?
Lake fire.
So, do you think that these other places that haven't burned, can you expect them to be much different than that? If we continue to maintain, without turning that tide to bring these away from places that historically had burned frequently, but now aren't burning at all, when they do burn, do you expect anything different on the on that south, just south of the lake, maybe Vulcan Valley, and across maybe even the upper reaches of Lotto Creek? What kind of fire do you expect up there?
Well, it's going to be variant based upon the burn cycles and if they're missed or not, but you're probably going to have more of a fuel loading,
Fire severity.
higher severity fire.
Sure. Yep. And there are efforts, and this is a landscape scale. So from here, you'd want to, consult so many other layers, and we're just starting from scratch here. Where across the landscape, where do you have too much fire, and where do you have too little, and what are those impacts Do we want to turn the mountaintop into lake fire across? Does anybody want that? No. So this is this is a guide. One angle to look it out. To look at, see where where to make some effort. So I asked the question earlier: where do your fires start? We have a lot of fires. All the forests do down here. Are you able to see any trends in this? In the thousands of ignitions that have across those districts? Might have to look a little closer. But where would you anticipate trends? And Bowen mentioned it earlier.
Major roadways
Yeah.
people are.
Yeah. So, you've got quite a bit of fire along Lotta Creek up to the top. Really intense fire history, ignition data up in Cajon Pass. A lot of famous fires come out of there. What about right up here? Highway 18, Waterman Canyon. And then this one over here, this curve, 330. And then over here, got 38 coming around. And then you kind of have a good spread out through here. And then, kind of backcountry, nice spread as well. But then, something that you can do is dig a little deeper into this. And these are all the lightning fires. So, these cluster quite a bit as well. You think there's an overlap if you bring back that layer that we were looking at a few minutes ago? What if you flash back and forth or put that lightning map? You think the light blue is going to overlap on that red? And then, when you go out to the field, what do you think you're going to find? Maybe more conifer, places that have missed those fire cycles for several times. So this is, again, it's rationale to focus, hone your efforts, where across your districts where you're going to do some good. So lightning is actually San Bernardino is special in this regard. Lightning is the #2 cause of ignitions on the forest. It's pretty substantial. Would you guys have guessed that for Southern California? #1 is, of course, undetermined. So it's something that Troy and I are working on, because it's pretty difficult, to manage undetermined, miscellaneous, for the ignition patterns. So now we're coming back. We have another spatial layer that we have the fuel models. So has anyone been involved with writing burn plans at all? Anybody? Yeah. So are you guys familiar with the 40 fuel models? The 13 fuel models or the 40? You guys heard those terms in this class before? Did you know that you can spatially place those out across your landscape? You think there would be any benefit to doing that? So I'm definitely a proponent of using mapping technology to aid in helping to identify places where you have that may support reducing fire or adding broadcast burning. Another way to look at another tool we've got. This is a fire behavior tool, canopy base height. So this is pretty broad scale across the forest, but you have. So what would canopy base height represent? What would that mean to you guys for like a regular common fire term? Ladder fuels. Yeah.
Potential for ground fire.
Potential for ground fire. Yeah. So would that maybe be good places to look, for doing thinning from below, shaded fuel breaks? And again, overlap your lightning, your highly departed areas. What about over here? What's going on? Around Arrowhead, Lake Gregory, Crestline. Good places to check out and see. These places could have high severity fire that with big impacts. A lot of values at risk there. You have a lot of components for pretty destructive fires in those areas. Shouldn't be a surprise, but this is supporting. Again, we should be looking at putting time and money over there. So that's building your case. Where are you going to put your efforts? Canopy bulk density. What would be, who on the forest, on the districts could help you determining canopy bulk density? Timber people, maybe Darby, and again bringing this to like a common term. How do you define density in a timber stand?
How many stems per acre? How many trees are on the landscape?
Yeah, basal area. Yeah. So again, it's something that came out. And does this surprise you guys? And pretty consistent across. But then what about like that Vulcan Valley, North Big Bear? What's going on up there? Maybe more dense up there, or something to you're looking for outliers, things that grab your attention. Working with the forester, forester and a fire person together could determine where, from a forester perspective, from forest health perspective, where your canopies are too dense. Could help you in your making specific treatments for types of species to take out and the density as well. So we're not just running blind, but we have science behind the that treatment that we're putting together. So how about have you guys talked about the FEIS database? No? This is another one, a good one to write down, that helps determine if you were to type in Jeffrey Pine in FEIS. It's a Forest Service maintained database. Discusses fire ecology, give you some help with fire regimes and fire management recommendations. And this is a picture adjacent to the ignition. The start point of the origin of the lake fire. As you can tell, pre-departed, extensive Jeffrey Pine overstory, but in the understory, real full with white fir. Real good areas to target, thinning from below to avoid fires that can really get up and move, aggressively. We have a car here. So that means we're going to change directions again. A little red one this time. All right, so from the Angeles public website, I grabbed this the other day. A couple things to take note. The Angeles was established in 1892. Anybody know the Angeles was the first national forest in California? The San Gabriel Forest Reserve. Do you know why it was set aside?
Watershed.
Watershed protection and fire protection as well, but primarily watershed protection for the protection of drinking water for LA County residents and also the citrus farms that used to line the entire front country of the Angeles. But I thought it was interesting that right now, when you look at the background, that the Angeles doesn't mention fire in that second paragraph. They just mention watershed and also protect the surrounding communities from catastrophic floods. So that's I thought that was interesting that they said that. What does that mean to a fire or fuels person? So we have you guys heard the term of a HUC, a hydrological unit code? No? All right, that has. So we have the station fire through here. We have the different watersheds across the Angeles, and they're broken down by ridgelines. These so hydrological unit codes are divided by size, largest being a low number, and to simplify it, we would have two low number HUCs in the country. If you stand on the Continental Divide, pour out water to the left, the water is going to go to Pacific. If you pour it out to right hand, it's going to go to the Atlantic. So this is a way to define watersheds, and this is the most common term. It's the level 6 size-wise, and they're 10 to 20,000 acres apiece. and if you know the Angeles at all, so all of these watersheds are going to drain to a specific point. If you spend any time in the front country here, there are dams and reservoirs and all of these across. So what happens when we have a large fire and then we burn 9 or 10 of these watersheds at a time? What happens to the supply of drinking water?
You get mud flows, it's going to come down and fill the reservoirs. And
Yeah.
less water for.
Sure. So when you have a reservoir that's full, that cost is phenomenally higher than the actual cost of even a suppression fire, like a station fire. You got to go and physically take a truckload at a time of each one of these reservoirs to empty them out. I think that's an expense. That's a significant expense that we don't think about too often. So what would that mean for a fire fuels manager if you're looking to bring watershed protection in chaparral types, in chaparral areas?
Well, you definitely don't want to be part of the problem and implement a project where you're going to keep burning sooner than its fire interval, because then you're going to be contributing to the problem as opposed to protecting it.
Okay. Yeah.
And if you stay too late, then you're setting up for catastrophic.
Sure.
Where now it's going to end up falling into with severities and having that whole other aspect.
Yep. Right. Have you guys ever spoken to a hydrologist on your forest? Each forest has one or two. I think it would be interesting if you were to ask your hydrologist if, on your district or on your forest, if your HUC, if your watersheds if they're all equal, or if there are some that they consider to be more valuable than others. Another term that's thrown around quite a bit, watershed protection, ecological resilience, fire adapted landscapes. What do those mean? To us as the fire and fuels managers on the ground, the fire is that landscape agent of change. So are we talking about hydrologists to say, are there things that we can do to protect those watersheds? That supply drinking water to a city like LA, where water isn't easy to come by. What does it mean when you burn 9 or 10 of your watersheds at the same time? What does that do to the drinking water of the city? So there are things to consider in factoring in. So we're going to take this over next door on BDF, and we can look at these. Break apart your watersheds, and then overlay that with your fires, your fire history, and then you can start your analysis. Are there fuel breaks? Because you're probably seeing some trends here. We typically use these primary ridge lines as fuel breaks to stop fires, to keep them out of multiple watersheds at a time. So are there fuel breaks that we have, if we have maintained them, that they burn over that watershed boundary every single time? Or are there some, if you go through, and this is where I think this is a more enjoyable part of the job, that once you have these identified, you start walking them. I walked every single one of my watershed fuel breaks on my boundaries and analyzed all of the fire history, where they're going to start, where they're going to stop, and what are those trends, and then you can say with confidence, when fires hit this, along Lone Pine Canyon, this is a very effective, proven fuel break. We should keep this. When fires go across, say, this one, it's never stopped a fire. So, that's rationale. Build your case, that we can move away, from reworking that fuel break that has never worked. So there are tools to consider. You need to hike them. You need to consider where your fires are going to start, where they're going to stop, and what's effective. So, have any of you guys seen the strategic fuel break assessment? Has that been discussed in this group yet? Okay. This one, this goes through. It's it's what it says. It's looking to rate our fuel breaks across the forest. We have hundreds, thousands of miles of fuel breaks across the Southern California forest. And this was an effort to go through and analyze and figure out what fuel breaks have been proven and what fuel breaks we need to abandon. You know, otherwise, how are we considering where we're putting our time and money? And this is an effort to help address that need. So I'll send this. I just have the one for the PDF, and I'll send it to all you guys that are here. You guys can go through it. It's pretty readable, and it's reasonable. It reviews a lot of the items we've been going over today, but it helps to narrow down, and eliminate fuel breaks that aren't effective, and then promote maybe. What I found was most interesting was it highlighted a few areas that I never heard of before. Go and hike those and check them out, and through their analysis, it promotes ones that maybe had been forgotten, but that are actually really effective. So it's worth the read, check out, and as this becomes public, it can be another tool. If we're working on a fuel break, it's rated number 40, and we're not working on the top 15. If we determine, through our fire experience, local knowledge, that 40 is right, then fine. But, at least be able to speak to it. Yeah, I understand. This is why we're working here. This is why we're not working on, because this is out here, and it could be held against us. So it's an important document to understand and be able to defend.
If I remember correctly from this conversation, I think Lauren on the front country brought up her concern for, the public that's going to read this, it's not going to understand why we're working where we're working. All they're going to see is, well, you're working on number 40, but not understanding why why it is number 1. But does this take into account, like, the community protection of where these fuel breaks are, or is it just simply walking a fuel break and saying, okay, if a fire came, the fuel break would be effective? But does it really take a look at the location of that fuel break in relation to the community that's above or below it, and why number 40, which we think is more important than number 1, and that's why we're working here, is because we have this whole area that we're trying to protect, even though this fuel break is extremely effective and we should work towards maintaining it. But this one right now, like, does that help? Is it gonna, I guess, I don't know what I'm gonna ask now, but I don't want it to be a hindrance to us that we now have this list of projects and it's telling me, we're working here, as long as the community or that people, when you're reading this, understand why number 40 is more important than number 15.
And I would say that it absolutely does, and it talks about where your ignitions happen. It factors in slope, it factors in your 90th percentile weather, take it from across the forest in different areas, where your fire's going to start, what they're going to burn into, what your values of risk are. It's extremely thorough. So I would say read it, understand it, and then, it is a common concern. There's pushback. But I would say when you read this, if there are things that were missed, I'd be real curious to hear about it, because to me, I think, well, they kind of covered everything really well. So what, just be prepared to defend or just explain that you've considered all these things and then why. So you just have to know if you're considering this an enemy, you've got to understand it and then say, factoring all this in, we're going to go here. That's fine.
So,
Go ahead, Ron, but I don't want to miss what she said that was important, which is that this is not an effectiveness document. And this is an important distinction to make. Is that this is, we actually, do you mind if I?
Sure.
This product was created because what other people are doing is trying to determine effectiveness ratings of fuel breaks based upon some very suspect data. So we created this product from day one saying we believe that every fuel break is potentially effective. And so it is not looking at potential efficacy of fuel breaks, period. What this product is simply an empirical evaluation, and that's why you come to the numerical rating of it. So a fuel break that has a higher rating, the highest rating, is going to have is going to be most proximal to urban interface, to values at risk, and that sort of thing. So it's actually extremely easy to defend why one is higher on the list than another. It's not an effectiveness rating. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I know I went to the discussion about this, and I know I read it. haven't read it in the last
Okay,
year,
I
I
just wanna
think,
make sure
since it
people
came
don't talk
out. so-
about this and talk about effectiveness at the same time, because, it mixes apples and oranges. So, that's all, I didn't want that to pass.
I was just wondering, that sort of answered it, but is some of the rating based on its current condition as a fuel break or its potential effectiveness if it was maintained properly, and
I believe they're,
or is it sort of a
discussed
balance?
As they were all, if they're all in good condition?
No, vegetation class was a tier B, which was, we looked at, there was 2 different rating lists, the current condition of the vegetation did not go into the prioritization. And the reason is because that's an ephemeral measure. And my personal view of philosophy of fuels management, you should always look at these things as a potential tool, and fires are going to burn, fires are going to burn over fuel breaks, fuel treatments, and so that is always going to, it's always going to change, but where it is topographically and proximal to values at risk is never going to change.
Right.
It's going to change on a much longer time period. So it's a potential measure.
Got it.
So I'll send this to all the folks that attended, so you guys can go through it. It's good to go through. I've been extremely thorough. I think it is a useful tool to factor in. Not the #1 guiding document, but something to consider in your planning. So with that, we've got another car, and it's time. Why don't we go ahead and take lunch? We'll be back at 1.
Where are you gonna go? Go to lunch or you bring it? I'll make some coffee.
Yeah.
Going up 330, up 18. Maybe not everywhere, both sides, but there are places where if we a little bit of effort, and maybe we can avoid those fires that run up to Running Springs or the rim and other places. So it's kind of what we're looking to do, just easy, straightforward, not a lot of time or effort involved, but the impact can be very large. And then, so I have this little, not much of a GIF guy, but sometimes I thought this one was pretty cool, and it actually speaks, to. So Joe, you had asked, if you go up in front of the board and trying to, is it going to make it over there? I don't know if it wants to. So, this is you're the fuels guy, Keanu Reeves, and then these are all the haters, and they're just coming at you like crazy. And in time, you're not even looking, you're on your phone. You're just not even paying attention, you're reading a book. Because they're like, have you looked at watersheds? You looked at fire regime? Have you looked at, what about cost favor? Do you have an agreement with Cal Fire? Yes. So that, it's to be strong and effective in these projects. If you, and again, bring it back to those areas that are important to you, that you want to see that change in the landscape. You don't want your favorite trail, your hunting area, to get blown open by a large fire. It's a little distracting now. So, but you get the idea that you kind of truly, responsibility is on us to to consider all these different alternatives and concerns, and that'll make you a lot more strong. When you're in front of your force leadership, talking to your district ranger, when you're talking to environmentalists, that you've considered all these things. Otherwise, they're going to eat you up. So it can be tedious, but I think it is worthwhile to have you been thorough where you've worked with your specialists and done your homework, to make your project defendable, to get them through, because you will get challenged from all directions by everybody. It's going to happen. this is where yeah, so, just remember your motivators. We talk about these, the fire-rich ecology in San Gorgonio Wilderness, and your favorite trails. And of course, after you go to the trails, you go to the brewery. And then you change directions in a sick Prius. This is obviously photoshopped. So the Prius can't drift like that, but we're going to change directions.
Sick.
So now that so what we're doing here, you guys have been doing NEPA and you didn't even know it. So we're in the project development stage. We're just brainstorming, and the term is left side analysis. Have you guys heard that before? Nope. So you definitely will with when Jeff Hayes comes in and goes through more in-depth NEPA process. But one of my buddies, when I worked with him in state of Florida, he on site he was a shrimper, super country, and he used to love to say, "Put your boots on. It's time to go. Put your boots on." So now is it. Now that we've done our left side analysis, can we go and get the drip torch and go and get after it, or do we have what's next here in developing a project?
Specialist.
Specialist, yeah.
Implementation.
Implementation. So right now we're ready to go implement. I know Eric is all the time.
Prepping it.
Yeah.
Seasonality.
So there's
That's
some
the
prep.
bloody word. It starts with N.
Yeah, NEPA?
NEPA, yeah. So it's that, remember the question, what are we allowed to do? We know what we're we know what we want to do. We know what we're, you got a little help here. So now that we know what needs to be done, what are we supposed to do on the land with our time and our money? What are we allowed to do? Same questions. So how do we get from knowing, we've identified what we think as fire, fuels, personnel, what we need to do, because all we want to do is get that torch going, just start doing the way back, kind of that lean and just lighting stuff up, because there's nothing better than running torch. But we can't just go do that right away. We have to consider specialists and consider our agency directives and make sure that this idea that we have is in line with the agency. So a good place to start, and we hit on this a little bit earlier, the Forest Service Manual, and again section 5140, it's fuels management, under the objectives. I'll give you guys a second to read that. So the things that we've been going through all morning and through this class, since you guys have been here for the past month or so, are we starting to understand the role of fire in the landscape in order to integrate as a critical natural process in land resource management plans? The landscapes are resilient to fire-related disturbances and also climate change. I think that's interesting that is in the fuels management directive in the Forest Service Manual. Cooperation with partners, strategically plan and implement landscape-scale, risk-informed, cost-effective, hazardous fuel modification and vegetation management treatments. We want to emulate the ecological role of natural fire using best available science. So, hopefully we're building, yesterday, today, that we're starting to give you those tools. Identifying some assistance, so that we are working how these projects are what we're supposed to be doing. Because this is how I take one angle, agency-wide fuels management program. What is the fuels management supposed to be doing? And that does mean understanding fire ecology, fire regimes, risk-informed, cost-effective treatments. So that's all these different components are part of that process to look at those different layers and then look at those trends and make informed decisions so that you can fight back when you get hit from all angles. Questions if you consider these things. All right, so talked a little bit about the land management plan. Has anyone seen the land management plan for the for either the Cleveland or the San Bernardino? Yeah, it's a good thing to. It's pretty readable. It's like Dad was saying, it's only 10 years old or so, which is very recent for a land management plan. We're lucky that ours is pretty modern and relevant. The land management plan, it has several parts, but we have one unified land management plan for the Southern Forest, the Angeles, Cleveland, Los Padres, and San Bernardino. And if you look at the in the table of contents, it has strategic goals, and it goes. It's a little bit hard to read. Goal 1.1: improve the ability of Southern California communities to limit loss of life and property, and recover from high-intensity wildland fires that are a natural part of the state's ecosystem. So where do we start? With Carrot Top. You know, we just covering our bases. You know, that's limit loss, life, property, our own structures, making recommendations. How do we support our neighbors, communities, you know, structures within, evacuation routes. You know, and we know that it's not just a structure, but it's the whole area. You know, how do we make these areas safe to defend? You know, how are we analyzing the fires that we're going to get and the fuels that exist there, and what actions we're going to take. Goal 1.2, restore forest health, where alteration of natural fire regimes has put human and natural resource values at risk. And then this land management plan goes so far, they were so excited about it, that they put and spelled out the fire regimes in the table of contents. Does that strike anybody else as substantial? No? Because, I mean, it's pretty freaking awesome that, I mean, who wrote this? Like the Fuels Elf? I mean, that's, I don't know, that they put, you know, they spelled out fire regimes, and they were so excited about it. It's in the table of contents. That is significant. Does anybody agree?
Yes.
Yeah, we were talking about this at lunch. That's so significant. I was talking about the last couple land management plans that I'd worked with were written back in the 80s. So I think the Lincoln National Forest, the last time they had one written, it was back in the 80s. And that's back when timber was king and everything was, even down on that southern forest that doesn't have a lot of growth, everything was real timber oriented. I mean, they didn't have any of these concepts of fire regimes or any kind of ecological concepts in it at all. It was just really based on watersheds and the different disciplines. So this is actually pretty impressive.
Just have one person that agrees. Anybody else? I mean, this does support. This does recommend a decent future, you know, in fire and fuels management. That it is supported. That it's important, you know, to the forest. That coming back to those questions, we know what we need to do as fire people. We know what we're supposed to do in the you know, the agency-wide fuels management directive. And then, you know, we look, and again, that's further supported in the land management plan. You know, in the cover, table of contents talks about fire regimes. Doesn't talk about campgrounds or, you know, I mean, it's that we. This is it goes into detail right away as soon as they could. They're so excited about it. So we're gonna have to see them again. You guys know that, right? Yeah, I'm not gonna look at that. All right, so. We're going to dive a little deeper into, you know, how do we just randomly, you know, if we're looking at defensible space, threat zones, do we just draw a blob around our projects and say, yeah, this is good, I think so, you know. In the land management plan, it does give you direction. In part 3, page 81, Appendix K, it talks about guidelines for development and maintenance of buoy defense and threat zones. It talks about protection of structures on national forest lands, and then also recommendations for projects with interagency partners. This breaks down fuels treatment in the defense zone. If your home is in the structure that you're looking to design a project around is in grass, 100 feet. If it's in brush, 300 feet. If it's in timber, 1,500 feet. It does include evacuation corridors. So as you can see, we've got little, well, you can't really see them on the structures themselves. In San Gabriel Canyon, I put a little triangle, and then I ran a buffer 100 feet around. That's also factoring in the county ordinance. So that is their defined defense zone. And then I grabbed, took the road system in, and then ran a 300-foot buffer in that. And that's by the guidance in the land management plan. So they're giving us specifics on what the maximum extent of that evacuation corridor is. So that's it's now random and it's defendable, and you can certainly trim it down if there's private, if there's roadless, if there's wilderness. Through the NEPA process, that'll be brought back a little bit. Maybe there's some threatened and endangered fish, which there are, the Santa Ana sucker, in the North Fork of the San Gabriel River. So that's going to bring back, but I always start with the maximum allowed by the land management plan for my defense zones, knowing that they're just going to get these shark bites throughout the entire, I want to maintain the maximum possible. I'm not going to start small or the minimum. Just give me the maximum, and then you guys can pick it apart, and we'll see what's left after that. So that's, part of the project design, referencing that, the land management plan, and that's where you're building your recommendation for a project. And again, so we are in the we're on the left side analysis of the NEPA process, and we're checking to see is this project. We're looking at forest plan consistency, what the possible activities are, what is the need for change. And it was Brandon or Joe, which you guys had asked about the post-fire. What is that guidance? And we talked about line officer direction, different inputs, but it does come back to the desired versus existing conditions identified in the land management plan. That's what that should ultimately be the judge to bring us back into what we've decided as a forest, what this is going to look like, what the desired condition is, and what's existing. So the existing is they're both going to change over time as we have fires, but this is the constant. So we have, in considering watershed boundaries, ignition patterns, different types of fuel models, anticipated fire behavior, your fire regimes, departure. That's where you're starting to identify purpose and need for your project. Because now you're cool with the hydrologist, and you guys are starting to go drift together. But you've also conducted real thorough policy, spatial, and field analysis, so that you're starting to build that defense. That this is, it's giving you confidence that you're going to do this. This is why, that if you're questioned from all angles, this is a solid project. Because the last thing you want to do is take a project out into the field, and then it not be supported. It's a dumb project. You forgot, you've missed fatal flaws there. So now we're going to put together a project initiation letter, and this is something I started doing as a field tech when I was working for Brian Rhodes when he was at Fuels BC, and this is a very critical step. It's going to give you're going to get that support from the ranger to move forward. Your district ranger is going to say, "I believe in your project. I believe in your purpose and need. I support you. That we are." We're going to move forward with this. That's going to put this project as a line item that the forest leadership team can see on their program of work. It's something that's going to be allocated specialist time, and it should receive funding as well. May have already considered, in talking with your ranger, the level of NEPA and and also establishing a timeline and a schedule for what. For developing that idea into something that will make it through the NEPA process. Do you guys? Go ahead, Brent.
Who does the NEPA?
That You could do it as a fuels tech. It could be the forester. It could be one of the specialists. Sometimes it's the dad is going to do some NEPA. I mean, it's
just kind of like a checklist. A qualified individual needs to kind of go over and look at it, and just kind of go down the list.
So it's a good question. NEPA is it's a process, and there are certain levels of complexity with NEPA, and Jeff will really go more into detail with this one. But there are there are certain projects that are exempt from thorough analysis, and then there are large projects that require extensive analysis. So it is it's a little bit of a lot of variables go into the extent. With that.
So when you put together that project initiation letter, that pill that they were talking about, what you do is identify the specialists that are going to be needed, and you have the discussion either at a DLT or with your district ranger. Need this much specialist time, this much specialist time for hydrology, FARC, biology, whatever it is. And you would be the ID team leader, the interdisciplinary team leader, and those people that you need input on that NEPA would be the ID team, the interdisciplinary team. And so NEPA is really done by all of those folks. And then usually you'd have some kind of coordination. Some forests, when I was on the Lincoln, we had NEPA coordinators or NEPA writers at the district level because we had so many threatened and endangered species, and NEPA was kind of a big deal there. We had recovery plans for Mexican spotted owls and that sort of thing. So, but Dan's right, pretty much anybody can be the ID team leader, but it's usually probably somebody that's at program management level.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it can be, if for a comm site, for repeaters, for your own fire station, for heaps, if those, on that sliding scale of complexity, if they're on the lower side, which are identified in Forest Service manual, these certain activities are exempt from extensive analysis. Then, I used to write them when I was working for Brian. I'd work. It was when Owen Martin was the district ranger. Definitely a character. He had all kinds of stories about Mississippi. Everything was related to how they did in Mississippi. Heard about Mississippi all the time. So with the good ranger, a good ranger will sit down with you, with Fuels Tech, with anybody that's interested in doing NEPA. No good ranger should turn down anybody that says, "Hey, I want to do NEPA." They're going to be like, "I'm going to stop whatever I'm doing. I'm going to give you my time, and we're going to, a good ranger will sit with you because we have such a shortage of people. It's tedious, but if you take it on, it's very powerful. It opens all kinds of doors. If you will take it on. So I wouldn't discourage anybody, from giving it a try, and maybe you can just do the NEPA for your fire station, and that's it, and see if you enjoy it. If you like working with specialists, and there's certainly it's not all really fun. It can be very tedious and it can take a lot longer than you think it should. But in the end, if you usher that project through your own idea that you came up with, then it's pretty awesome to go do it. And then then a fire hits it and it works, then you're Elvis. I mean, that happens. If your ideas are good. So again, it is important that through the NEPA process, your original purpose and need of that project are maintained. Because I've seen, you come up with the purpose and need, we're going to do this, and then all these specialists, they just jump on you, and then it's just, just brought down, and that thing just takes a turn to the right, and then when you're done with it, it's not effective at all. So it is very important when you take it on that you fight back silly ideas. We've all been in meetings where people just, well, I drove out this way, I'm going to say something, and then you wish they just didn't say anything because their ideas are dumb. Not all ideas are dumb, of course, but you just want to balance it out, So you really just want to armor and guard that your idea, and people will try to influence. Some influence is very good, supportive. A lot of it is, But some of them, they'll just try to take it down, and you think, you know, okay, so if you take broadcast burning out of this project, why are we even here? Why are we doing this? You know, and that's why we have to be at the table to fight back. Otherwise, it's kind of a lot of time for nothing. And again, it is important that you walk these lines and you talk with your dozer operators or your masticator operators. You know, you can. I've had conversations, you know, on fires with somebody who's running one of those. What are they? The masticators that are on the self-leveling cabs. Timcos?
Timco.
Oh yeah, I bother the hell out of those guys when I see them. Just to see, you know, what they can operate it on. You know, how many if they're running in brush, what their production is. You know, what it takes to, you know, how much does it weigh? Does it weigh more than 80,000 pounds? I mean, you want to run through all those options, you know, so that you don't have any fatal flaws, and that you've got that well defended, really thoroughly thought out project that's going to work. So innovative thinking, you know, this is even though that Cajon Pass ignition reduction project, it seems very obvious now. You know, to do an ignition reduction concept, I don't know of a lot of other ones, you know, like that. I think it is innovative, and I think that this summer we'll see a huge reduction in fires in the past for something very simple that just, you know, was an idea that was floated. Had a lot of fun with this guy. This is it's a brush crusher from LA County. That's a 4-ton drum. It's got about 12-inch blades. Fill that thing up with water. It has two 300-foot cables attached to winches on either side. Sit that thing up on top of a ridge, ease it down, bring it back up. You just walk it down a ridge, and it crushes everything and makes some nice divots on a slope that's couldn't get any other kind of equipment on. But instead of mowing that stuff down with real difficult footing, places where you can't really walk at all, we would use this to lay down brush and then come back behind it with fire, and you've got that nice fuel break that's 300 feet wide. It only fell off once. Unfortunately, it didn't fall off on a house or a vehicle or a person or anything. So, you know, it was just a little bit of a learning curve for the operator. He said that he had just run that thing up and down thousands of times, and then one time just ran it too far, and there it went. So had to send one of the LA County EMA crews down. They cut a hole for it. Were able to attach some cable and bring it back up, but those things happen. Could have been worse. I don't know if you guys ever did this in the places that you worked. When I worked on the Wasatch, again, you know, 900 inches of snow was awesome, but we would support the wildlife biologist. He was an innovative guy, and he wanted mosaic burning done in sage. And you know, sage is like brush. It's not that easy to do mosaic burning in sage because it's all pretty uniform. Usually, when it burns, pretty dry. But I don't know if it was his recommendation or one of the fire folks that there were within the project area. There were these large areas that had south aspect, and they would lose their snow first. So we just wrote a little burn plan. You know, it was we would go in the spring, time to we had to, you know, of course, run out there a few times, make sure everything was good, get the sleds going. Not a bad way to spend the day on recon. And then we would just put torches on the back, and then when the conditions were just right, snow everywhere except on that south aspect, burn it off, and there's your mosaic. So, you know, it did also require, because we're the Forest Service, we had to do snowmobile training, and I literally took this class from, he was a Mormon preacher, very nice, very pleasant man. He was about to retire, very unassuming. When you talk to him, you think, you know, this guy's super quiet, very nice, very religious. When I showed up for my snowmobile training, he has this snowmobile with like a 9-foot deck. it's called the Red Dragon. He's changed personalities. And I was like, is that one mine? He's like, no, you're not going to touch that thing. It's like, what? I don't know what world I just entered. But, when I was following him around, we're probably going 70 miles an hour, and he said that he was stressing the importance of being able to drop a cornice on a snowmobile, because you just never know when you're going to be out trying to get to these backcountry burn units, and you're going to find yourself on a cornice and you got to drop it. So this is what we were doing for the day, following this Mormon preacher around known as Red Dragon, dropping cornices, so that we would be qualified to go in mosaic burning and chaparral and sage. So it was just a different way. You just make sure that you're considering all the options. You don't have to do those well-worn paths. So another, sometimes it's a little guy with a chainsaw. We were in a DLT meeting on the San Gabriel district, and I was having trouble getting folks out of my fuels projects because they, a million obligations and whatever. And someone mentioned that the senior citizen center next door were looking to volunteer, and I asked if we could run them through 212 and get them out on my fuels project. Because you design these projects, you push them through, you spend all this time on analysis, and then nobody's there. Well, I'll get the senior citizen guys, get a saw in their hand and get them qualified. There's also so that didn't really go that well. But then also we have some ninja academies, some nunchuck guys. Just looking to get the brush cut so we can burn it. Because I know that our windows are approaching. So just consider all the options out there. And my stipulation with the nunchuck guys was that they made nunchuck noises when they were cutting, going across. So nobody likes that one. All right, just looking to get the project done. So back to the NEPA triangle. So this is where you'll expand more on this, but we've been on the left side in that project design. You're looking at the forest plan consistency. You're assessing all potential possible activities. You've established that need for change because you've seen it. You're concerned that these areas would be impacted negatively by fire. You understand your desired condition. You understand your existing condition, and you can articulate that. In the future, you guys will discuss, turning the corner on this triangle into the proposed action that supports your purpose and need. You're identifying issues, looking at alternatives, possible effects, and then eventually you'll get to a decision, and that means that you're ready to you can start acting on this project. So now we've gotten through the NEPA, up to the NEPA process, answering that question, what are we allowed to do? This NEPA decision document ultimately provides that clarity. So we can't just, Florida style, just identify what we need to do and go do it. We have to run through the process. Is this in line with agency policy? Is it in line with the forest plan? Taking into consideration, are we looking at the LMP direction? Impacts to, are there endangered species in the area? The Clean Water Act. We're looking at ownership. Is there wilderness? Is there roadless? When Haskins and I were looking at your at the Heaps Peak Hell Station, or the Hell Base, we were surprised to see that a lot of that isn't roadless. So there are concerns with running masticator. Some heavy equipment. There are some limitations in roadless, so you do have to realize that prior to running a masticator, because there can be real liabilities and repercussions and trust affected if we just go and do that. So we do have to make sure that we've thoroughly analyzed and teased all that stuff out, so that we don't just make enemies, or worse, really, have a liability that we've done something destructive. It's the game. It hasn't always been like this, but it is the world that we live in. So, but again, it does come back to that motivation. How do you want to get these projects through? It takes a lot of pushing and a lot of endurance. But I do think that, if you can have a well-designed project all the way through, then it is a worth the time.
Once you get it approved, is there a timeline to get it done before you have to redo everything?
That's a good question. So what I've experienced as far as the timeline, when we present our burn plans to our agency administrator, our forest supervisors, her request is that we have done a review of our NEPA decisions every 5 years. And that means, that could identify a change in ownership. We do add wilderness, or there might be a new listing, a new sighting. What if they found a condor up at Heaps Peak? I mean, it is in the range. They say that they may be in the range in in Calhoun Pass. But what if you guys, one day you find a condor nest? I mean, it wasn't. It's a dynamic world. Things change. You do want to make sure that stuff has been identified, because it's, it is a dynamic document that you can keep it in motion as long as you review it. 5 years is that's a standard that we've been requested as burn bosses. I don't believe that other disciplines have that tight of a timeline.
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious what kind of documentation she's asking for. Does that review mean that you go and talk to each one of the specialists and you get them to sign off on something?
Yeah, on the Angelus, I would do it's called Supplemental Information Review, and it is pretty straightforward. It takes some time, but it's a GIS exercise, that you talk to your botanist, wildlife biologist, your lands person. You basically move around the room. It can be efficient. It can also take forever. So it's with some ranger support. That's what I've used effectively in the past. It's my recommendation, but it may change, ranger to ranger. Yeah.
Going back to the question of if they expire, like I know, like early on when I took on the position, I heard that that NEPA doesn't expire unless there's a significant change. And just for like good measure, when we're going to do a project, I'll try to coordinate with the specialists and stuff like that. And then you have the specialists who are like super eager to get out there, and then they're happy you inform them that you're going to do work out there, and then 9 out of 10 times they'll find stuff that needs to be avoided or whatever. But then you have the specialists that are like, well, has the NEPA already been done? Then unless there's a big change, then why are we even talking? So,
yep, and you do want to go through the process and make sure that they're, if they want to put their name to it, you'll see next to hydrology, no change, you're good. Next to ARC, you're good. There might be a new listing, a new plant that was found, so it'll be variable, but you do want to be, fair and consistent across the board. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. So then there's a sheet where we should be tracking our interaction with the specialist.
Well, when you're doing the NEPA review every 5 years, in working with your specialist and your ranger, you might have district protocols that each project has its own checklist. But this is more, as I understand, back to Greg's question, in the review, unless you're asking, are you looking more specific to the project every time you work?
Well, because I guess some people will tell you that NEPA doesn't expire, and then, here we have, I'm guessing Jody saying we visit it every 5 years.
Yeah, as the forest fuels officer trying to get these burn plans done, I have hit a gate, and she's the gatekeeper. It's the process that she's established for us. Is it consistent? I don't know that it is, but for prescribed burning, that is the defined timeline, that they need to be reviewed.
I don't think that really necessarily goes towards all projects. If you're out there doing a thinning project, you don't necessarily probably need to do a full-blown SAR.
this freckle, whatever. All you have to state in your plan is how you're going to mitigate that, correct?
Sure. Yep. And the review is more to make sure that you don't, there hasn't been new sightings, or maybe policies changed for that frog. They've been delisted, and then you might not have the those time restrictions anymore. So that's where you are doing with our force supervisor putting her name to the burn plan is something that she asked of us. So we are a little bit held. It's not consistent, and that is definitely something that's been discussed. Because if we'll be held to it, then everyone should be held to it. In theory, we're having those same discussions, with biologists, with the ARC, as we're prepping for the new, for those burns, for those units. We're talking to them as well, and hopefully they're going to say, well, we found this new item, there's this change. But the process that we have is a supplemental impact review every 5 years from the date of that signature. It's not consistent with other programs, which is, it's a thing, Brad?
So you do your review, could they get more restrictive and say, oh, now we got like a bunch of these plants that are growing in this area, we don't want you only pile burning from here on out?
So remember, we might be talking about the Endangered Species Act, the Clean Water Act. That's the idea behind this review, that you are taking that chance. It may be more restrictive, it may be less restrictive. My only experience has been that the Mariposa lily was dropped. So all of a sudden we weren't doing surveys for the Mariposa lily anymore. So it can work to your favor and have less headaches. It might be the opposite and have more.
Now, do you have to redo the whole NEPA for that once there's a change, or is it that supplemental form good enough and you can make that modification, call it good, and you can go about your business?
I have not experienced that before, where I believe that will be the line officer and this new finding. Is it significant? Does it change the proposed action, the purpose and need of that project? If it does, then you may be looking at more extensive work. But if it doesn't change anything, it just adds more of certain areas you need to avoid, certain time frames you need to avoid, then it can probably be worked out.
Well, okay, no, because we run into the Keno.
Yeah.
And then we were working around Bonita Vista, and we had done like the fuels break, and we went and did that, and then we went back to start working on it to kind of clean it up and maintain it, and Kiana went and found some new form of moss, and the moss had popped up since we had opened it up, and it was some endangered moss, and she shut us down for so many months where we couldn't do anything, and then she finally said, well, just don't step on moss.
Yeah.
But
that happens. In a world where we've suppressed a lot of fire and we try to open it up, and something that's been suppressed forever, then we have a disturbance and it shows up. I think it's good to say, hey, hold on a second here. So we've made this disturbance. Maybe we did a prescribed burn, and I know that you guys have experienced this on the Scanzo. You had all these limitations. You do a prescribed burn, and then the thing comes back like crazy, and you say, hold on a second here. What really happened here? Do you really understand? It's a good topic of discussion at that point. Fire does play a role in Southern California, in the mountains, extensively. And when you hold it back forever, make these restrictions that keep holding it back, then you do burn it. It's good to understand and take note and say, we need to talk about this now. This fire absolutely benefited, this species. So.
But then it would be having to find the new regime and all that other stuff to go with it, right?
Yeah, it's part of the game, that NEPA is the best available information at that time, and from there, things will change, and we'll find new things, and new species will come up. So it's something to be aware of and respectful for, but I think you can also have a little fun with them. How long you've been restricting us, and then actually this fire is beneficial.
Well, yeah, because it ended up restricting us, and then the mountain fire took care of it.
Yeah. Brent, do you have a question? No? Okay. All right. So again, taking those resource specialist concerns into consideration, helping us dictate what we're allowed to be doing. I just have a few more slides. If you guys want to take a quick break now, or I'll probably be done by 2:30. So more, what do you think?
Well, whatever they want to do, I'd say rerun.
What's that?
Run until, well, you said just a couple slides?
I've got a few. You guys want to take 10 minutes, walk around, and then we'll do the final?
Sure.
Final push for it?
Yeah.
They feel overwhelmed.
We weren't able to maintain that it's a mountain fire came in because we got a bunch of homeless and Vulcan beat it all up. So we'd have pretty good. He put me this. He put me this, he put me that. But hey, that moss will probably pop up a lot more now. Yeah, that was out on the, Bonita Vista, that project there, going around that housing community. It was on the side facing, what road is that? Apple Canyon? So the side of the project facing Apple Canyon, that's where that moss popped up. And she's like, oh, she came out there and was like, you can't do this.
Can we do the fuel samples?
What?
Where we do the fuel samples?
No. You go up the road further. Yeah. So where we do the fuel samples? Keep going up that road, and then as you get up north, yeah, and then as you get towards the top, you'll look over, and as you're coming up, you'll see the old fuel break, and it goes around that entire community. And
What's the name of that old fuel break?
Bonita Vista.
Last time I think we worked
We started reintroduced back in, we went back in on it, right before. So like that winter, the mountain fire, was when we started cutting, and then they turned around and restricted us from, maintaining it, and then they said, okay, you're good to go, and then it was fire season, and then the mountain fire moved it all off. Pick out like 5 or 6 inches in there.
Was that fuel break? Did it all? It was maintained properly.
Yes and no. I think it went and we had wind on it, but the area that it went through was an area that we had not touched. Like, we hadn't gone into that.
Was it that narrow drainage or whatever gap that it kind of slid through on the other side?
Yeah, and you're talking about on the backside of Bonita, and that's where the Kino. They were like, oh, the Kino butterfly, and so we just cut a narrow strip because that's all they would allow us to do. Our engine went in and cut it, and burned it.
That's where it slid through.
Yeah, if it had been wider, yeah, we would have probably checked it out. But
We had an instance with the butterfly thing. They wouldn't let us cut vegetation because they were butterfly. Then something happened when we cut it down in the forest because they can't fly so high.
They can only fly 3 feet off the ground. And that's what ended up happening. It was on the lead road. They ended up doing more of a yeah, we gotta check a lot of that. Guys, I told Kiana, we were out doing planting after the mountain fire, and that's planting trees for, help bring the different workers of the district together. To go plant trees. We went out there, and Kiana was giving us this whole lecture about, the Kino butterfly, and the only way that you can tell that it's a Kino butterfly from a monarch butterfly is under a microscope. And she's like, how many of you have ever seen a Kino butterfly? I said, yeah, I see them all the time. She's like, where do you see them? I said, well, when I'm driving the 243 and they're hitting my bumper and bouncing off the engine. Oh yeah, she was so mad.
Projects. The last thing that you want to be stuck with as an implementer is a project that's been planned by a biologist or something. Nothing against biologists, but They just don't have the suppression background, so that's my case. We all need to be, any of us that are interested in fuels need to be pretty proficient at being able to deal with the specialists, the other specialists, be able to talk their language,
Stand your ground.
advocate for our resource, and for the guys that are actually going to have to go out and implement the projects.
But I mean, that's the fun part too. You know, those challenges that come up. You know, it's I don't know, the good back and forth and holding ground and putting up a good fight. Something you believe in. I don't think that's bad. So now that you've got the document, you know, you want to be realistic with timelines, but you want to be, you know, it may be this is your baby that you brought for a few months or a few years. You got to continue to be persistent. Ideally, from the start, this project was supported by your division chief, by your ranger. You know, these are the two primary supervisors, the specialist, and the majority of the workforce on that district. If you've operated this project, designing it in a bubble, then you're going to be working on it in a bubble as well. So you really do want to be working with the division and ranger. Those are the two that are key. You know, if you have their support, then they're going to be right there with you, saying, "We will do this project," and then that's that. I think it is important to make yourself a NEPA review checklist to scan through it, because you do want to identify. You know, it's important that you understand the project. You know, and it may have changed, it may have evolved from your idea to the current signed form. That signed form is that concrete. The concrete is set. This is what you're legally binded to operate in this way. So you got to understand what's in there. And again, you know, like Thad was saying, that be aware that at some point when that signature is there, when that ink dries, then that's that. And if you didn't get your all the right ingredients cooked into that thing, then it's going to be very difficult or impossible to get right. And then just, open it back up again, and you're that much further from actually making it happen. So LOPs, I might use that term, that acronym a little too much. Limited operating periods, and it sounds like some of you guys are starting to get to know that term. It is important to identify those clearly. I know as a new fuels VC on the Angeles, I missed one for the Mariposa Lily, and we were implementing, and it's a sickening feeling that you see that and you think, we've been working this line I missed it, and we're in the middle of the season, and what I did, I just called the botanist right away and said, hey, this has happened. I'm going to be totally transparent. If you hide it, you're really setting yourself up for failure. If you're going to miss these things, own it, call them, let them know, and it was fine. And actually that was when she told me that the Mariposa Lily had just been dropped, and I said, why am I having this conversation with you? Goodbye. And that was that. We didn't worry about Mariposa Lilies anymore. So she's actually a good friend of mine, so not like that. But you do want to be aware of those liabilities, so that you don't do damage out there. Identify. You want to be spend a lot of time walking flag and avoidance areas with the archaeologist, making sure that if you're going to run a mechanical treatment up there, anticipate, flag that thing really well. Anticipate the operator's perspective, their view, and make sure that you're flagging those areas well, and so that you don't have a massacre that runs through an arc area. It just causes it's more work. It's a headache on the easy side, or a lot worse on the difficult side. You do want to make sure that you're always aware of the objectives, and you carry those objectives into a prescribed burn plan or the implementation plan. You're working the fuels crew, however you implement that NEPA decision, that you're always aware of the objectives and making sure that your actions are supporting working towards those objectives. I do think it's important to, and this is, we go from as fire personnel, on the fire lines we have resource advisors at the ready. We can put in a call and they're out there in a couple hours. This is a new world. You need to be maintaining schedule with them and talking. It's not a good feeling to be a couple weeks from a good burn coming into the window, and you haven't talked to your specialist at all, and they say, I'm booked, for months. I don't have time for this. So, you want to develop those relationships with them and make sure that you always keep an eye on that ball, out a couple of months, a few months out ahead, so that you just take care of all those things that can bring that project down. Then you got to wait till next year. You always want to have the plan of attack. If you're going to burn it, and these are all things that I've seen, experienced. That Swiss cheese effect. Maybe things that should be considered or obvious. If you're looking to burn this, do you have qualified burn bosses available? Are they current? If you're going to work with the operators, cooperators, do you have agreements in place? Again, on fires, it's very easy. It's handled by the team, by the local district or forest. When you're talking about fuels projects, you have to have money in place. Be working with the, I'm prompting the discussions with our folks involved with that Cajon project. We had our first meeting with the cooperators in October or November. We're not looking to implement until April or May. But if we have that meeting in March, it's not going to happen. We need to make sure that identify the agreements, that there's money in place. We've scheduled them out. Again, because that little window that we've got is going to come and go, and we have to wait again. And we're going to have summer fires in the past again after all that work that we've gone through. It sounds tedious, but I always get those crews out there and walk it with the crew captains, because they'll tell you we can do this in this terrain, this kind of treatment, 2 acres a day, 5 acres a day. You never just assume it. When money and time are on the line, just be thorough. Build relationships with these guys, and so that you trust them and that you've walked it. And this project's going to cost $17,000, and we'll be done with it. It's going to be done in 12 days. It's a little bit different way of thinking that we're used to on fires. We're there, we'll finish it when it's done, and this is it's a little bit different. If you're, sounds obvious again, I got a nice surprise several years ago looking at doing this mastication project. Came in maybe a week before, and the folks that had the masticator said, we haven't taken it in for the PM. I thought, cool, so it's been sitting here for like the whole summer, and now we're going to use it, and we can't because got to take it in. So, I don't know, just consider, really, again, have to hit all, if you want these projects to make through, hit all the angles. Are those operators, are they qualified to run the machines? Are they committed to you? Can't assume anything. Again, several years ago, learned the hard way the first day of the fuels crew that none of the sawyers were current with their saw qualification. Okay, cool. So now we're just, to set up those little surprises can have big impact. So, as project managers, especially projects that you design and care about, you want to be real thorough with that stuff. Know what you look to and what you're going to intend to accomplish for the year. Understand what the prep is needed, and then these all the time, especially sometimes the cooperators, the off-force varied resources, Veteran Screen Corps, cost-benefit funding from the region. I've even used the local fire science college. They'll put together crews, and all they've put in the hand lines for me. Whenever somebody calls me and says, "Hey, we want a training crew, we want to put in some work," always put them, have lines to put them on. Never want to turn the stuff down. So, just lessons learned the hard way on a lot of this stuff. And the last part, you guys will go through this, sounds like tomorrow, It is important to capture pre and post monitoring. It can be as simple or as complex. Just get something. You know, we will have cameras ready. If you have a consistent approach, these pre-treatment photos are just they just go. I mean, I've gotten so much use out of these two. Just, you know, the year before with that with the botanist, she was looking for weeds and rare plants, and I just grabbed GPS points and north, south, east, and west. When the fire happened, I was looking through it and said, oh, this is an incredible picture. And went back up, had it next to me, stood in the same spot, before and after. It's very easy to get the after. It's very impossible to get the before, you know, after the fire.
So if you're using like you're talking about using like college crews or whatever, how do you set up for injury, and who's responsible for that? And
yeah, well, I mean that's I would say work with them. You know, work for, you may have an engine on scene. I mean, you could do it in a million ways.
who would be responsible, I guess, payment-wise? Like if there was an injury and they had to go to the hospital, like you're killing me. Like
so in the weeds.
It's a good question.
Schools have their own stuff.
No, it's a good question to ask. I would think they're all going to be different. You know, it's worth exploring. You know, with that liability, do they want to set up an agreement? Do you want to spell that stuff out beforehand? You know, I have not. You know, it's pretty rare to use them, and they usually come to me and say, "Hey, we'll cover everything. We're just looking for lines. All we need is land and an objective." So that's what I provide with them, and they're usually self-contained. I'd say when you approach them and you're looking for products that you should be paying for, then that is all spelled out in the agreement itself. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to send that field break assessment to the BDF folks, and if you're on the Cleveland, just ask Phil Moore, and he should be able to provide that if he hasn't already. So something I've been working on real recently, just started this week. Monday afternoons in the SO, I'm keeping the schedule open from 1 to 4. And any of these, if you want to learn GIS, if you want to talk more about fire regimes, if you want to write a burn plan, if someone's told you to do some NEPA, I'm there all Mondays. I block things, you know, working on random things, but the schedule is open. If there are fuels related items, any part of this that if you want to learn more about, you know, if you want to get a map of your HUCs, come by. I'll show you how to do it. I prefer to walk you through it and give you the skills rather than give you a product. So if you're interested, especially for the folks that are local, and I'm sure that if there are things that you saw that Fillmore can help you with, the same thing. Just it's what we're here for. I think it's the first and foremost thing that my position is here for, to support, to help out, to build those skills, to make this stuff happen. All these things we've gone through, I've built through my experience in working through these problems. So if any of these, if you're interested in them, I can help you out through any of this stuff. So that's all I got for that. Any questions? Anybody want to go through anything else, or that?
I know that you're going to talk about this later, but and this is something that really gets kind of implementers don't really pay a lot of attention, but monitoring is really, really important. How much you're monitoring and what you're monitoring for, and not just the day of the burn, but and not just for what kind of fire behavior you're getting when you're implementing. I think monitoring is really important to understand the effects after the fact. And especially if you're monitoring, you need to monitor live and dead fuel moistures. I've had some bad experiences with burning in some ponderosa pine ecosystems that hadn't seen fire in a long time, or actually killed off a bunch of legacy trees or stands of trees because they hadn't seen fire in such a long time, burning them in a drought cycle. I was told one time on the Mel here that because of my burning, bugs actually moved into the stand as a second order fire effect. So, you know, all of those things you need to consider. You know, if you're burning in a drought cycle, you probably don't want to burn it on the hot end of the prescription. You probably want to burn it on the cold end. Another thing when you're looking at project planning on these ecosystems that haven't seen fire, that had frequent low intensity fire regimes, haven't seen fire in over 100 years, it's going to take multiple entries of fire to get it back to that desired condition that we were talking about. And so that's something to account for when you're talking to your specialists about project planning. Because a lot of them don't understand. They think it's going to be like one shot and you're done, you know, one entry of fire. But ultimately, you want to get that stand or that landscape to the point to where you can maintain it with fire, kind of like they do in the southeast. And that means multiple entries, you know, getting fire, mimicking that natural historic fire regime. Just some things to think about. But monitoring's huge. If you can't go back and tell somebody this is what the existing condition was and we're to our desired condition, the only way that you can get there is by doing some monitoring, right? To be able to show that you've reduced fuels by X amount. So it's huge. And the more that you can learn about, you know, putting in Brown's transects, photo points, those sorts of things, it's really important.
Appreciate that plug for monitoring. It's a good segue for tomorrow's lecture and field day. And it, you know, this class gets kind of taught, broken up, guys. You know, this is the first thing we're starting to talk about, trying to break up the NEPA triangle. Dan talked about the left side today, and we're talking about the bottom of it tomorrow, and then I think in February, sometime in February, we're talking about the NEPA side. Which I consistently am surprised and pleased at how interested people are, firefighters and folks are in actually NEPA itself, and trying to demystify that a bit too. What was that? So what Dad was talking about with having second order fire effects that came in after the burning, what is it? Does that remind you guys that were in yesterday's class or something we talked about? Remember that quote? About doctors and foresters? What was that about?
Doctor buries his mistakes and the forester has to
drives by it.
And what did that mean?
If you make a mistake, you're going to see it every day going to work.
Yeah, so that stand of trees that killed, and I've done the same thing, and I think a lot of other people have, and there's some places on the forest here where we probably made some mistakes in burning in a drought cycle and had an adverse effect. All that, you know, it's important to learn. It's okay to do those things. It happens, right? Everyone makes mistakes, and as long as you try to do better. And, the other thing I wanted to mention is that this whole lecture and everything you guys are talking about, I think really speaks to the point. I hope that it's starting to dawn on you guys a little bit about why I've been so emphatic about introducing you to the scientific literature, because you can't know everything, but it does exist. I mean, it exists anecdotally with other people's experiences, but a lot of the real science is captured in these papers, and that's why it's such a big part of this class, is to get you guys comfortable with going to that, going to the literature, going to the land management plan, and being familiar and fluent with that terminology, so that you can know your enemy, so that you can know how to properly propose and, you know, more importantly, properly implement a project. So hopefully that's starting to click a little bit with you guys. Why we're doing so much of that in this class, why we're talking about it, why we're learning how to read those scientific papers. So
Anything else?
that's all I got.
All right.
It's your class. I appreciate you coming down and teaching it.
Yeah, thanks for all the BDF guys coming down too. Long day drive, but yeah, thank you.
Come down anytime you want.
Thank you.
Get a hand here. So for the students
Oh, I don't want that.
Yeah, I can do that. I can do that.
Why you gotta be doing stuff like that, Ron? Why you gotta be like that? I'm all jacked up on Mountain Dew.
It's all messed up.